Hello, everybody, and God be with you. Well, time for another story from Bob Hartman's New Testament Tales. This one is called the biting version. It's about a man called Zacchaeus who didn't have a very good job. Life is full of surprises. That's what my dad always says. You can never really tell what's going to happen next. So there we were, waiting on the side of the street, stacked up 5 deep. Me and my brother Isaac and just about everybody else in Jericho. I couldn't see a thing, to be honest. Abraham, the fattest man in town, stood right in front of me. And the fact that he was a fishmonger meant that he was also the smelliest man in town. Not a good combination. Let's move, I whispered to Isaac. And then somebody bumped up behind us. I say bumped. It was more like a push, a shove. So I turned around to shout, "Hey, watch it," or something like that. And, surprise, I found myself face to face with one mean, scary little man. And I do mean little. I'm only 12, and I had a good 5 centimetres on him. He didn't say a word. He just scowled and backed up out of the crowd and disappeared somewhere down the queue. "You know who that is, don't you?" Isaac asked. "That's Zacchaeus, the tax collector." "Are you sure?" I said. "Positive," he nodded. "I was in the shop when he came around that time." "Oh, yes, that time," I nodded in reply. "The time his bully boys beat Dad senseless." "I was hiding in the corner behind the big pots," Isaac remembered. "Dad kept saying that he'd paid his taxes already. And they kept saying that there'd been what do they call it? Clerical error. And that he owed them even more." "Rubbish," I grumbled. "They just wanted more, and they reckoned they could scare him into handing it over." "Well, he didn't," Isaac said. "He told them he'd paid what he owed, and that was that. And that's when they smashed things up. The pots, the bowls, and then Dad. And Zacchaeus, he didn't say a word. He just stood there with his arms folded, blank-faced, as if it didn't bother him at all. It's as if he'd seen it 1,000,000 times before." "I hate that guy," I said. "I hate him too," Isaac agreed. "So why don't we do something about it?" I suggested. "Are you joking?" Isaac snorted. "His goons will have us for dinner." "I didn't see any goons," I shrugged. "I think he was on his own." "Now that you mention it," Isaac nodded, "neither did I. If they'd been there, they would have done the pushing and the shoving for him. He'd be standing at the front right now, with the best view in town." "Which is also kind of weird," I said. "I mean, everybody is waiting for Jesus to arrive. Why would somebody like Zacchaeus even want to see Jesus?" "Who knows?" Isaac replied. "Maybe rabbis pay taxes too. Let's go." So we wriggled our way out of the crowd and ran down the back of the queue in the same direction the tax collector had gone, stopping every second or two to look for him. We searched for what seemed like ages. The queue was huge, but then Isaac spotted him right at the end. And that's when it occurred to me that we might not be the only people in that crowd who would like to get their hands on Zacchaeus. So I ducked back into the crowd, where the mean little crooks couldn't see me, and jumped up and down shouting, "Zacchaeus is here! Zacchaeus, the tax collector! He's down at the end of the queue!" "What?" grunted the man next to me. "Sorry," said another man. "What are you going on about, boy?" "Zacchaeus, the tax collector. He's just down there, and he hasn't got his bodyguards with him." "Yeah, right," the first man scoffed. "He doesn't go anywhere without his bodyguards." And what would he be doing here anyway? Added the second man. Zacchaeus wouldn't be interested in anything Jesus had to say. And you can bet that Jesus wouldn't want to have anything to do with him. I was getting nowhere with these guys, so I popped back out of the crowd again, and there he was. Zacchaeus had his back to me and was heading for a tree, a sycamore tree, right where the queue of people ended. He was moving pretty fast. I wasn't really sure what I'd do if I caught him anyway. And then the strangest thing happened. Zacchaeus started climbing up the tree, like some evil tax-collecting monkey. Surprise! Did you see that? Isaac shouted, running back to meet me. Yeah, I sighed. Now that he's up that tree, there's no way anybody's going to get their hands on him. We'll just have to make sure he can't come down, Isaac grinned. We'll make sure he stays there until the crowd thins out. And how are we going to do that? I asked. And Isaac just whistled. Bite! He shouted. Bite! Good boy! Where did you come from? When I was looking for the tax collector, Isaac explained, I ran into Uncle Simon. He had Bite with him, and I told him I'd watch him for a bit. I reckoned he would come in handy. And he has, I called. Bite was not the biggest dog in town, not by a long shot. In fact, he was sort of a doggy version of Zacchaeus, little and mean and horrible. If we stand at the bottom of the tree, I suggested, and let Bite do his thing, I'm pretty sure we can keep the monkey man up there until someone realises he is where he is. So we wandered over to the tree. Bite barked and snarled and leapt up against the trunk for all he was worth. It was perfect. Then someone shouted, Jesus is coming, and the crowd roared. Some people were just cheering, but a lot of them were asking him to come to dinner too. It was a real honour to have somebody famous to eat at your house. I guessed he'd probably end up with the mayor or maybe one of the leaders at the synagogue. I kept one eye on the crowd and one eye on Jesus, and Bite kept both eyes on the evil monkey man in the tree. A closer look at Jesus, however, revealed that he was staring at the tree as well. Hello, Zacchaeus, he said. And the crowd started buzzing. Zacchaeus? Zacchaeus? What's he doing here? But the buzzing turned to a dead, stony silence, and even Bite stopped barking when Jesus spoke again. I'm looking for a place to eat, he continued. I was thinking that your house might do. The silence didn't last long. There was moaning and complaining and more swearing than I thought I'd ever hear at a religious event. It's an outrage. Has Jesus gone mad? Zacchaeus is the worst sinner in town, the crowd howled. And Bite howled too, until Uncle Simon appeared and dragged him away, embarrassed. And Jesus? Jesus waited for the tax collector to climb down. Then he followed him home with half the crowd in tow, angry still, but also curious to see what would happen. So much for that plan, Isaac sighed. Yeah, it doesn't seem right. He beats up our dad, then he gets to eat with the most important visitor this town has ever had. I thought Jesus was a good guy. Maybe he has a dog too, Isaac chuckled, hidden under those robes of his. That would be a surprise, I grinned. But I sort of doubt it. I wouldn't mind seeing what happens now. The crowd's pretty worked up. Let's watch. So off we went. And then we waited. It took ages. But finally Zacchaeus' front door opened and he and Jesus came out, to more than a few boos. I have an announcement to make, Zacchaeus shouted. I have decided to give half of what I own to the poor. That shut the crowd up. Furthermore, if I have cheated any of you, I will pay you back 4 times what I took. Silence. Shock. And then the biggest cheer I have ever heard. And then Jesus spoke. Salvation has come to this house today, he said, and that is why I have come, to seek out and save those who are lost. There was another cheer, and then Zacchaeus began walking towards my brother and me. Had he seen us with bite? Did he suspect anything? Would Jesus step in and save us too? You're the potter's boy, aren't you? He said. That's right, I answered nervously. That's us, said Isaac. Well, I cannot tell you how sorry I am for what happened to your father, he continued, or rather, corrected himself, what I did to your father. Then he held out a money bag, and I swear I saw tears in his eyes. Please take this to him, he said, with my most humble apologies and my assurances that nothing like that will ever happen again. He put the bag in my hand, wiped his eyes, and then walked away. I didn't expect that, Isaac whispered. Me neither, I whispered back. It's like my dad always says, I guess. Life is full of surprises. Well, that's the end of this book of Bob Hartman's New Testament Tales. But I've got another of his books. So if we're lucky, we'll get another story next week. In the meantime, God bless you.